What's going on, everybody? LK here. I had a discussion today with King J, Justin Wong, and Kizzie Kay just about what's going on in modern fighting games in general. It made me think about what is coming up next in this modern new generation of fighting games. You know, Street Fighter 6 came out this year, Mortal Kombat 1 also came out this year. There was a Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising beta. That's a mouthful, but there was a beta for that just this past weekend. Under Night in Birth 2, insert subtitle here, has a beta this weekend at the time of this recording. Tekken 8's coming out next year. There's just a lot of stuff going on in fighting games right now. So generally I talk about like the games, and what I mean is like the multiplayer. Like obviously a really big reason why I'm into fighting games is the multiplayer aspect. I find it fascinating, engaging. I basically think it's like you could just play for a really long time. However, if we're talking about this specific aspect, honestly, they kind of got it. Like, we could talk about specific mechanic stuff, like I just recorded a video about Wild Assault, or character analysis, like meta analysis, all these things we could talk about. But today I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about other aspects of the game, really. So for starters, one thing I am expecting and want to see more is actually costumes. So again, my main games for a while have been Arc System Works games, and costumes haven't really been a thing. It's always been like color palettes and referencing colors. So an example would be like back in the day I played like Morrigan Lychee, or there's like Soul Bad Guy, Ragnar the Blood Edge. So we would just have these cool color references, but some games go way further. You know, there's a meme in Street Fighter 5 where people are like, Chun-Li sold how many copies of this game because of all the costumes she has, right? And MK actually does a pretty good job of this too, of having costumes and stuff. One thing that's always been super sad, I felt like I used to always say this, maybe when I was playing Dragon Ball I was saying this all the time, this is a very common take in Dragon Ball. People always felt like one of the biggest fumbles with Dragon Ball fighters, and there were a few, not talking about even the game balance, just the game, is they had this really successful game and there are just no costumes at all. So there are some of, like, you know, there's base Goku and Super Saiyan Goku and Blue Goku, right? But for example, there's Vegeta and base Vegeta and Blue Vegeta, but whereas like Majin Vegeta. But as the competition between fighting games increase, because also there are games like Tekken who do a pretty good job of costumes. I don't think they reference other characters, but I know like Tekken has had like character customization for a while for when you're playing at home, that I think this standard is going to be raised, and I think this is really good. Just being able to personalize your character more beyond color, I think is pretty good, especially because like if you're talking about color palettes, for example, like if you're like an Under Night player or a Multi-Blood player, you're chilling. If you're talking about Actress Again or Under Night, there are a ton of color palettes in these games, and Type Lumina has color customization that you could do too. But if you're a Strive player, for example, there's not a lot of options, and it's kind of weird too from that perspective, because if you take XX, for better or for worse, in ACR, there is some super terrible, like vomit style colors. I don't, maybe not vomit, but they're not great colors. But then there's some classics. You just have a lot to choose from. Even Exit has like more than 20-ish colors by character, but you might not be able to get them all so easily. So I think this is one thing, like costumes to me represent personalization. You know, Street Fighter also has this a little bit in the avatar battles, but more of these would be just good. Now the elephant in the room, big number 2, would be rollback, of course. Right now, rollback is the absolute standard for a fighting game, and honestly, you're trolling if you're not releasing a game with rollback. And the challenge is like, you can release like bad rollback. Like bad rollback does exist. Funky rollback, whatever you want to call it. A really interesting thing about this discussion I had was King J mentioning that like Tekken, there's like Namco rollback. There was always like a classic meme about Tekken having like an in-house rollback with the Netcode not being that great. So right now the onus is really on the developers, because if there's something that was like really amazing about what Guilty Gear did, it's just forcing people to put rollback. Finally, after all the people asking for so long, finally, it is the standard for netcode. So, for example, Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising, again, a mouthful. That beta was this past weekend. All I heard was great things about the netcode. Under Night is also planning to have rollback netcode. Basically, like, all the mainstream games right now have some type of rollback netcode available for you to play on. And this is just great. It just opens the pool of players. And even if the game is, like, really niche, you can still find someone to play with if you're just like looking to play some games. So the third thing about the modern fighting game generation, I'm saying this a weird way, but we have to talk about live service and seasons. So there's upsides and downsides to this. This also came up in our discussion a little bit. Let's be positive for a sec. So the good thing about it is that, one, if there's anything that like breaks the game, they can fix it very easy. They could fix it quickly. You don't have to wait like a year or a year and a half for a new disc. Any type of like meta thing, like hyper consolidated meta, they could like fix. If there's any like bugs or anything, they can fix it very quickly. You can also reliably expect content over a period of time, which I think is very nice. With like a content map or a roadmap. Out of recent-ish fighting games, a game that really fumbled this is, I'm sorry to come at this game, and because I haven't talked about it for a while, but it's DNF. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but one of the big complaints I heard from other people about DNF was that there was just no roadmap, so people didn't know what was going on, or when new stuff was coming, or when balances were coming. Rather than just like beat up DNF for no reason, what this actually reflects to me is the importance of the developer communicating with the community. I think is a much bigger thing than before. I think in the past, just a new game dropped, they would hype it up, and then that thing is there, and you're just like, all right, this is what you're playing, and then they're going to release a new one like eventually. Some people don't like the concept of seasons. There's also some memes going around. For example, Guilty Gear is getting here, by the way. Guilty Gear has 25 characters, so that's 10 DLC characters right now. So if you boot up Guilty Gear with no DLC, there's a bunch of locks on these characters. But if you boot up DBFZ with no DLC, there is so many Goku faces with locks on the characters. So, it gets kind of bad. But if you're keeping up with the game, like you started with the game, I don't think it's so bad if you're really invested. I did a video on this a while ago, but as someone who played like BlazBlue, so we had this kind of bad where I added up the price of BlazBlue, basically all the versions of BlazBlue that I got. So I played from BBCT, BlazBlue Calamity Trigger, to BlazBlue Central Fiction, the first version, which means I bought the game, unfortunately, digitally. I do regret buying this game digitally. Digital games, totally other discussion. Long story short, BlazBlue Calamity Trigger, $60. BlazBlue Continuum Shift, $60 again. That game had 2 DLC characters, Makoto Nanya and Valkenhayn. We're gonna say they're just $5 each. That's 60 plus 70, 130, basic math. I didn't remember this. Kizzie told me this. On one of the consoles, I think it's on Xbox, you had the option to buy CS2 as a complete package. I don't remember this. I remember downloading CS2 for free, but I think it's because I already had CS1, the original BlazBlue Continuum Shift. So that means there is a timeline. I don't think this is fair, really, but you did have the option to pay another $40, which, obviously I didn't do because I already had BlazBlue Continuum Shift, so we're not going to count that. We're just going to count the additional $5 for another character, Platinum. Okay, so that's 60 plus 75 now, so we're at 135. But then there's BlazBlue Continuum Shift Extend. New story, new characters, but all the characters are on there to my memory. I don't remember there actually being DLC for BlazBlue Continuum Shift Extend. However, that is another $40. So now you're at $175. Okay, there's BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, which is another $60. That's correct. So now we are at $230. Am I doing math right? 175 plus 60? Why is math hard? The way I do math is fucking slow because I'm not a math major. Okay. $235. Okay, we got it. I think we made it. $235, small brain. Anyway, but then that game had DLC. That game had, I want to say, 3 DLC characters. Maybe one came with the game. We're going to keep it light and say 2 DLC characters, Kagura and Kokodoe. So we're going to say $10 worth of DLC. I really think there was 3 DLC characters, but we're going to be nice. So we're at $245, being nice. Then you have a free update in BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma 1.1. Then that game has an extend, so now you're at $275. That's another $40. And then there is BlazBlue Central Fiction. I want to say I probably got this for $50. It might have been $60 though, but I'm going to be nice. So we're going to say is $325 I spent on BlazBlue. I'm pretty sure that game might have had DLC character. I don't remember. That game has DLC characters, but I think it came out later, so by the time I'm not playing anymore, the other characters are coming out. In comparison, there's Dragon Ball FighterZ, which has a ton of DLC characters, but I paid $60 once for the game, and then I paid for Season 1 Season Pass, so that's an extra $25. So that puts us at $85. Then the season 2 season pass, which is another, we'll say $25, just to make it really easy on us, and that puts us at $110. Then I got the season 3 DLC, which is another $25, so that puts us at $135. So one, just money wise, even though the character select screen looks like a huge meme about DLC characters, you aren't spending as much money, and you're actually getting a bunch of free stuff too. So in BlazBlue Days, of course this is the past to be fair, but in BlazBlue Days we do have like the free 1.1 update and stuff, right? But there's no free additional content. However, you can make the argument that these like BlazBlue Calamity Trigger, BlazBlue Continuum Shift, BlazBlue, Chrono Phantasma, these games had full story modes, anime cutscenes, story mode. Whether or not this is a meme game story, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get blown up about fucking BlazBlue. But it has a full story mode, combo trials, training mode, online, a ton of stuff that you could do in the game. Truly a fully packaged game, where Dragon Ball Fighters didn't even have a real tutorial. The tutorial, this is something I've also used to say a lot in Dragon Ball videos, the actual tutorial, the dojo mode, was not added until season 2, when people figured out how to play the game. It's full of stuff that players figured out and they put it in the game. However, they did add a ton of new content over the years. Online tournaments, party mode, raid bosses. It does have a story, but it's like the really bad fighting game story. You gotta fight everybody, you gotta like collect stuff, you know, it's like a really lazy story. Where BlazBlue, while it's, I don't want to say it's a meme story, it is a super well-built world, anime characters, anime stuff's going on. So the value assessment is really up to you. From my perspective, even though I love BlazBlue, if you're talking about purely money, I definitely got a better deal out of Dragon Ball, even though that character select screen of all the locks looks really bad when you get the game. However, there is the other side. So if a lot of the additional content over the years are going to be DLC characters you have to pay for, because you know all the updates to Dragon Ball, the actual balance updates, are free. But one really common thing, and I actually do agree with this, there does need to be a way to try out characters before you buy them. I'm a sweat. I play fighting games. I'm super sweaty. I enter tournaments, all this stuff. So I'm buying season passes no matter what. I bought the Grand Blue Fantasy versus season 2 pass, knowing I wasn't going to play the game. As soon as I saw Bellio, I played against him once. I'm like, this game's done. I'm done. I'm flushing the game, right? Still bought the season pass. That's I'm in a very small percentage of fighting game players that are willing to do that. Most people are not willing to do that. Apparently Street Fighter 6 has a way for you to like rent characters so you can try them out, which I think is a pretty interesting idea. I have heard of other games having this thing, but still not like a common practice. So I would really like that. Even from a tournament perspective, like if you really are like a character loyalist, you know, you come at me for whatever, you know, I pick the characters that I want to play, plus I think I have a good chance of winning with. And if I don't feel, if I'm honestly, I shouldn't say don't even feel, I should say like if I'm dooming over a character, I will just not play them anymore. I've done that a bunch of times now. Sometimes people get sad. If you're a character loyalist, which is very common in fighting games, you're not really going to want to mess around with other characters. You're only going to go into the lab to either practice your character or practice against other characters. So at the bare minimum, you could have something, rent a fighter aside, where you can at least play the characters in training mode. But you can't play them in actual modes like online or versus, but you play them in training mode. I don't think that thing is ever gonna happen. I don't know if a game has that in any way. There's probably like, you know, I know there's gonna be a comment where someone's like, KI wins again. I bet you could do that, you know. But at the bare minimum, the rent-a-fighter thing I think is a pretty good, fair way for a lot of people. And then they'll just nickel and dime the whales like me. So then the last thing I wanna overall talk about is like just kind of fighting games return to form, and I'm talking about fighting games as a complete package. We've talked about this a little bit over the video. So an interesting point that got brought up to me was like PS1 era and early PS2 games. They had like a lot of like other stuff to do in general. I think a lot of more casual players always mention this. There's modes like, you know, MOM and Guilty Gear, which is not in Strive. There's like Tekken Ball. There's like all that type of stuff, right? So I think a lot of the bigger fighting games of the 2010s were lacking this. Of course, this is definitely a Mortal Kombat wins again. Like the NRS is always on the ball with these type of things. But like in SF5, this wasn't a big thing. SF5 didn't have arcade mode. I think in that like era where like companies are just kind of trying to figure out esports. I know we use esports as a meme term a lot, but fighting games are carried by both the casual players who enjoy the game casually, and then also the competitive players too, who enter tournaments and they drive the game, and people are really motivated to practice and play and stuff. So I kind of understand the shift. It's funny in hindsight where it's like, man, it's really bad there's no even arcade mode. But then if you're looking at it at that time from the dev's perspective, you're just like, yeah, everyone's playing this game. It's just going to be grinding the game, like playing each other, grinding the game to get ready for tournaments. So like, why? We don't need that right now, you know? Like how does that help them? As long as they can play online and they can play offline, like what else do they need? But having that like aggressive feedback after dropping that game, I think really opened a lot of eyes. And again, it's not like I'm letting my game slide either. So Guilty Gear Strive, I mean, to be fair, at the time when it launched was not a very nice time in the world, let's say, when that game launched. But they were planning some fun modes. There's one mode I was really hoping they would follow through. I haven't heard them talk about for a long time, but they're planning like a co-op, like 2v2, 2 players versus CPU type thing that I thought would have been really fun. Thought would have been fun to play on stream with friends. They haven't really talked about, even though they added a lot of other modes like digital figure and the combo maker mode, which I think is a pretty interesting mode. And like I said, Dragon Ball FighterZ had to grow into the game it is today. When the game came out, there really wasn't a lot to do. There was a story mode to get 21. There was like a 1v1 mode. I think it had online team mode and like online and a practice mode. Like that's it. It didn't really have as many modes and functions as it did today. So I feel like now there's more pressure to have more of a clearly complete marketable package rather than having the game, having the online, and slowly adding stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. That's kind of just my feel on what's going to be going on with modern fighting games, not from the versus perspective necessarily. As far as that, everyone's gonna be doing their own thing. They're gonna be making mistakes with characters here and there. There's gonna be memes along the way, but they're gonna patch the game, and the players will be building the game into the experiences we lovingly remember when new games come out and we call them all scrubby. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, like and subscribe if you guys feel like it. YouTube very much likes if you watch another video, so go ahead and watch that, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.